Welcome to Connoisseurs and Conversations. I am Red Alert,
Some real insight.
and today's conversation is really just going to be about consumerism and
Yeah.
how we consume music. But
Mm.
first, let's get into our sip of choice for the day.
Yeah, man. We are sipping on Angel's Envy today. Angel's Envy. So this is a really good bourbon distilled in Kentucky. It's a well-known bourbon as
Yep.
well. So even the average drinker, the even a novice would have heard of Angel's Envy before.
Mhm.
It has that type of name recognition with it, but it's also a good one as well. It's one of my go-tos that I would drink. If you get on the nose there, it has sweet notes of vanilla, toasted oak, and caramel, with some fruit hints of ripe cherry and dark fruit and raisins as well.
Yeah, this is always a solid choice.
It really is. It really is. The taste, you taste that vanilla, that toffee, that maple syrup. This is a really good one. It does have some spices to it, so it does have a slight kick to it. Again, for a novice, you might want to put a little rock in there, but it,
Mhm.
it it don't need it. You won't need it. I won't need it. It has a warm finish to it as well, and it's slightly sweet also.
So not necessarily for your mules or for your mixed drinks or for your
No.
old fashions. This is good, right, all by itself, right?
Exactly. These good bourbons like this, don't mess it up and put some Coke or Sprite in it like that. Just at the worst, you put a rock in it.
But I mean, if you have to because you're used to drinking really sweet
Yeah.
or light drinks like that,
Yeah.
just try it straight one time and just see how you like it.
All
Anyway,
right.
salute.
Salute.
So,
Yes.
consumerism,
Yeah.
how we buy our music, where we get our music from, all that kind of good stuff.
Yeah.
For me, man, I've been collecting music since I was a wee lad.
Yeah.
My first record was probably, shoot, like Peter Brown, Do You Want to Get Funky with Me or something like that back in 76, 77 with my
Yeah.
little allowance. But I've always been like a big record fan
Hmm.
and a record collector. But as I
Hmm.
get older, the way I listen to music changes, the way where I get my music has changed a lot. So
Hmm.
just want to talk a little bit about that
Yeah.
and kind of get some different perspectives on how people consume and get their music.
Yeah. You know, quick sad story around music with me. You mentioned collecting records as a kid, and I used to do the same thing, those albums and
Hmm.
the 45s
Yep.
and what have you. And Hurricane Katrina back in
Oh man, yeah,
2005, man,
yeah,
I
yeah.
lost all that was kept at my mom's house
Yep.
and my dad's house in New Orleans, and we lost a lot of that
Yep.
stuff. Well, all of it really. So, but anyway, I just say that because it just made me remember of those times and going to Tower Records and just spending all day there,
Yep.
just kind of looking through. That was a date, man. Let's go to Tower Records with your girl and just look through and listen to all kinds of
Absolutely.
music. Yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah.
I can remember quite a few dates that I've had that, started at a record store and ended up in a
Mm,
restaurant or something like that or
yeah,
other places.
yeah,
But it's definitely a place where you can kind of get to know somebody's background, their musical taste and all
yeah.
that kind of good stuff.
And in New Orleans, shout out to Peaches. There used to be a record store named Peaches in New Orleans
Mhm.
that was a big deal there. So it's not there anymore,
Yeah.
but New Orleans people know what
We
I'm
had
talking about.
Dr. Wax in Chicago,
Yeah,
Dusty Groove, uh, Import Records,
yeah.
couple of other ones that I can that shoot even back out in the South Suburbs had Hegwish Records and a
Mm,
couple of other ones.
okay.
But quite honestly, every time I go to a city and I travel, I
Mm,
try to go to
a record store.
a record store
Ah,
just to kind of see what they have.
okay.
Um, so you talked a little bit about Katrina, and you had a
Hmm.
vinyl collection that your
Yeah.
family had at one point in time that was probably handed down.
Hmm.
Then y'all lost it.
Yeah.
Did you go through a process of trying to recollect all that stuff?
No, as important as that was, there was so many more things important around that time that we had to take care of. So, no, never got around to that. But then came digital, you know.
So that's my point.
Yeah.
So instead of trying to go back and get the, same copies of those records on vinyl, did you go and find them on digitally?
Yeah, I did. I found a lot of them digitally, and actually, I really enjoy that because it's easier
Hmm.
to look up, to find, and what have you. But that old nostalgic way of going through, and even the smell of it, there was a certain
Yeah.
smell with the records that I miss, and it was just an exercise to go through that. that's not there anymore. But I tell you, that's coming back. The old
Oh, it
record
is. It is
players and
coming
all
back.
that's coming back. Right.
I think record sales have been up for the last 3 to 5 years. You see record pressing plants.
Hmm.
I'm sorry, vinyls as they call them now.
Yeah.
They're coming into the forefront now, and there are a lot more coming back online.
Hmm.
Um, for me, I'm not buying something on wax or vinyl unless it's what I consider a classic and it's something that I'm going to listen to a number of times. Now there's a lot of records that I buy like that,
Uh-huh.
but I think I try to get stuff digitally first, and then I'll go and purchase it again on vinyl
Hmm.
if I really, really, really
Yeah.
like it and gotta have it. And
Yeah.
it is sort of a keepsake for me. At some point, I do think that my kids will, in my mind, they'll be able to sit down in Dad's room and enjoy
Yeah.
his record collection and
Hmm.
all that kind of good stuff. Whether they do or not, in my mind,
Right.
I see them doing that.
Right. 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 Right.
So when you say you get, digital is your source.
Hmm.
Well, let me ask another question first.
Yeah.
When when do you most often listen to music? How do you listen to music?
Yeah. So mostly streaming.
So when you're on Spotify, are you creating your own playlist or are you allowing it to suggest music for you?
Um, in Apple, when I do Apple, I create my own.
Okay.
So I have my playlist separated, old school, later jams, my gospel music, my hip hop music, etc. And so when I hear something or think something, I just go download it and bring it to that
Hmm.
particular category. And so I keep it that way. But they do have radio stations in there and what have you. And sometime I just go that easy route if I have some people over or something like that and just put
Yep.
that station in
Yep.
and let it play and do it that way.
I used to listen to, excuse me, I used to
Mhm.
listen to Amazon
Mhm.
Music a lot.
Mhm.
Uh, I would buy the music from Amazon, and typically
Right.
they would have one of those features where if you bought the physical version of a record, you get the digital version, right?
Right.
So I had two copies of redundant copies of the
Mhm.
my libraries in certain situations or
Mhm.
certain songs. It got to a point where they wouldn't allow you to do that anymore. You could
Mhm.
still purchase it, but the access that they gave you within Amazon Music was kind of limited, and they ended up suggesting a lot of music for
Right.
you, even though you purchased the music.
Right.
I didn't like kind of being force fed their playlists,
Mhm.
and I'm using that as an extension of like Pandora. Pandora was cool when it first came out,
Mhm.
and I use that every now and then, but I didn't like the songs that they were suggesting a lot of times.
Mhm.
Um, Spotify is a little bit different. I think I like Spotify's algorithms a little bit more.
Mm.
They'll play more of the songs that I'm looking for
Mhm.
before they get to their suggestions.
Yeah.
And oftentimes, in any of those services, you can get access or exposure to something new that you may not have heard before, which is okay. But um, more times than not, they're not suggesting stuff
Yeah.
that I would have liked and that I will like, and I typically don't follow their suggestions, which is kind of moved me almost all the way away from streaming services, and I still use physical copies, but I get most of my new music from either YouTube. Um, I check certain sites, Reddit stream,
Mhm.
different, Reddit will have a topic about, new
Mhm.
music that's coming out. There's a site called OK Player where there used to be a lot of music discussion. I would go there and check out stuff and just different places where
Mhm.
music was being talked about. Then I go to, let's say, magazines, online
Mhm.
magazines, whether it's Rolling Stone,
Mhm.
those type of magazines where they talk about new releases that are coming out to see
Mhm.
what's new. But for the most part, my main source is either digital DJ record pools or Bandcamp. Those
Mhm.
have been kind of my go-tos for newer music,
Mm.
for me
Yeah.
anyway.
I do use Pandora as well, and you have levels within that. You have
Hmm.
the free, and then you have one that you paid us, and then they have one, I think three levels to it. So I'm at the second level. I pay maybe $3, $4 a month or something like that.
Hmm.
And so with that, there's no commercials. but also you can click what you like and don't like if a song come on to kind of channel it towards more to your listening palette, so to speak, and customize it to that. So um, I do use that as well if I'm having a party or some people over. I have trained that channel, so to speak, to be more of what I like over time, and it
Yeah.
obviously remembers it as well. So that Pandora works for me, and then my own personal library that I continue to add to
And
ongoing.
kind of shape and hone in with the stuff that you like.
Exactly.
It's real interesting though. I think the YouTube, when you search certain artists up and
Hmm.
you and just let the algorithm start suggesting stuff for you, YouTube actually does a better job of exposing me to newer, different things than
Hmm.
some of those other services.
Mm.
Um, and it's interesting that you mentioned, a lot of these paid for subscription services or
Right.
streaming services have advertisements in it.
Hmm.
Um, that's that kind of just defeats the purpose of me using a streaming sort of application just for me.
Well, how they gonna get their money, man?
In most cases, you're paying for it. So why
Well,
do I need a commercial if I'm paying for it?
well, I mean, it's additional revenue, right? I mean, um, you look at these skits that you have on YouTube and
Hmm.
all over the place. They get so many likes and so many followings, then they get to a point where they can have, advertisements. And so I get it. I don't necessarily
Well,
like it, but
it's
understand it and get it.
it's the environment that we're in right now.
Yeah,
Now, how much traditional radio do you listen to?
very little, man. Very little. I mean, it's amazing how um, times have changed that has spoiled us, and we don't even know we
Oh man,
spoiled.
no.
And this generation don't know that they spoiled for sure because they didn't have to listen to AM and FM radio and just wait till stuff come on.
And they don't have to, sit and wait for their favorite song to come on
Right.
and try to record it without
Oh,
having the DJ talk over,
that's
parts
right.
of the song.
That's right. And even if it
Um,
did, if you got it, you're
you got it
satisfied
right.
with it, right? Yeah. And not the best quality either,
Nope.
you
Uh-uh.
know? And so, you think about those uh those days when we did that with the cassette tape, right? We would
Yep.
wait and just press play it and stop and wait another 2 hours. Okay, I like that song. And
Oh
you don't
man.
get the very beginning because you have to hear it come on first and then press
And
play.
then for me, I got so good that, I would have different parts of the song recorded from different times so I could
Yeah.
spice it together and make the whole song.
Yeah. Yeah.
But the amount of time that it took to do that, man,
Yeah.
yeah,
Eh,
that just
Yeah.
crazy.
But I tell you, when XM came on, that did help um, transition from regular radio into that where you can go to certain stations and listen to the genre of music you wanted to listen to,
Yep.
hip hop, R&B, soul, rock, country, or whatever, and just get that ongoing. And I think these stations like that have to be really innovative, especially with these platforms out there, those streaming platforms, because you can rewind, you can keep playing, you can play exactly what you want to hear. And now some of those services are with XM, like you can rewind certain things, you can
Okay.
rewind a song or what have
And
you.
XM also gives you the opportunity or the alternative to listening through their app too.
Yeah,
So you can have the app and you can have
yeah,
Sirius XM is what we're talking about, satellite
yeah,
radio.
yeah,
You can have the app or you can have satellite radio.
right.
I did like I had Sirius XM for a while.
Yeah.
I just the thing that got me about it though was I could only listen to it in the car.
Oh,
Then my wife bought me a little handheld portable
mhm,
device that I could use, but it only worked in certain parts of the house.
right.
So it just wasn't ubiquitous enough for me to be able to port it around and carry, especially when you got a phone or something like that, when you can carry most of your music on too.
Well,
Now that they have the app though,
right.
different ball game.
So we can talk about the uh, I guess the maturation, if you will, from was it a Palm Pilot? Remember it was a Palm Pilot? And what was the thing that just had music on before
iPod.
the iPod? So you had the iPod where you just had
But
music
let's
on.
go back.
Hmm.
First, you had. We're not going to talk about guys walking around with a fiddle or some bongos or something like that.
Yeah,
First, they had portable radios.
yeah,
Then you went from the radios to transistor radio
yeah.
to the
Cassette.
radio cassette.
Hmm.
You go from radio cassettes to boom boxes, and we're talking
Hmm.
about portable devices now.
Hmm.
Um, And then you go from boom boxes directly to Walkmans.
Hmm.
And they were CD Walkmans
CD
initially.
Walkmans,
No,
yeah.
no, no, I'm sorry. They were the tape Walkmans
Then
initially,
CDs, yeah.
then the CD Walkmans to iPods,
Hmm.
and then iPods to,
To where we are
to
now.
where we are now, where you
Yeah,
got, everything from music to video to whatever on a single device.
yeah. I never imagined it all being on one device. When I had my Apple iPod, I was so satisfied
Oh
with that
man.
and satisfied that it was separate from my phone.
Hmm.
And I can't remember, it was at some kind of business conference somewhere. And the guy said, eventually all this going to be on your phone. Why would you want to carry two? And I just kind of departmentalized things.
Hmm.
And I just like it here, but I just couldn't imagine it on my phone. And now I can't imagine it without it on my
Well,
on my phone,
and
right?
there were other MP3 players besides
MP3, yeah, yeah.
iPods. You had Zune, and
That's right.
you had a number of other ones and I think
Yeah.
Sony even had one.
Yeah, generic name was MP3. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
But
yeah.
but you think about back in the 70s too,
Hmm.
and the different formats of music. Of course, you go from live to um, there was a device that Thomas Edison made that had wax that
Hmm.
allowed sound to be recorded on this like spindle
Hmm.
records, 8 tracks,
Hmm.
cassettes, reel to reel,
Hmm.
then CDs to MP3s, and I'm sure I'm missing a format in there too. Maybe it was more of a professional one than it was a commercial one.
Blu-ray was
Um,
more video, right?
yeah, that
Yeah,
was more video, but they
yeah,
also had these other tapes that uh, were available to consumers as well.
yeah,
But yeah, you used to have a room full of
yeah,
music that you now can have on a single
yeah.
device, and that device didn't even have to have it
Right.
its on the device. You just have access to all this stuff virtually now.
So let me ask you a question from a DJ standpoint. Though we miss the days of the vinyl and you having crates and people help you carrying your crates to the event, now you don't need that. You have a device which you're mixing maybe small as a computer
Hmm.
and everything in that.
Hmm.
So do you how has that transition been for you? Do you miss the old way or do you enjoy the way it is right now?
The What I miss about the old days is the rarity of the music. Not you Everybody couldn't have everything because there were limited copies of the music. So you had to go and seek
Certain DJ.
certain DJs, certain sounds and all that
Red
kind of
Alert
stuff.
gonna have that. We're gonna get him.
Yeah, and he the only person that got that, right?
Yeah,
That made you different, and that made each DJ have to be a
right.
little different. It really made things ultra competitive.
Mm.
Now that everybody has equal
Just pipe it
access
in
pretty
there, right?
much
Yeah.
to everything, and
Mm.
if you don't have it, you can record it and manipulate it and reproduce it on your own.
Hmm.
Uh, it's a different type of creativity. It's So you go from being a DJ to more of an artist in a lot of ways. Um, and the software itself that you use to DJ is so intricate and powerful now. You can use stems and take an acapella from one song and play it with the drums and the bass of another song. It's a whole different level of creativity.
Yeah.
So it has its pros and cons.
Yeah.
Um, I wouldn't say that one is better than the other. What I will say is I think with everyone having access to the same ingredients,
Hmm.
that's the part I
Right.
think I would like to change a little bit.
Right. And I know you're not suggesting this, but there's more to it than right being a great DJ than having the music. It's the personality, it's the style, it's
It's
how
the
you
style.
spin and how you
It's
cut and do
no,
all that, right?
no. It's so every chef has access to more or less the same ingredients, but
Hmm.
it's the amounts that he puts into it, how he serves them up, how he cooks them, and all that kind of stuff that makes the dish different. That's the
Yeah.
thing with
Yeah.
DJing.
Yeah. So I mean, I'm thinking of a Kid Capri, right? I mean, so something makes him
Hmm.
different than another DJ with
Absolutely.
his success to doing that. And a lot of that is his personality, how he can move that crowd and
Yep.
he's in there when he's, on the mic as well, right?
Exactly. It's him being on the mic. It's him, demonstrating his personality. It's him
Right,
interacting with the crowd. Not every DJ does that same level of interaction.
right,
There's some guys who don't talk at all. They
right,
just let the music
right,
speak for them.
right.
But again, it comes down to that chef's way of preparing the dish for the audience
Right.
and how that and whether or not that audience is receptive of it at that time.
Okay. All right. So what about we talked about radio, but I guess podcasts similar to how we doing. Do you look to podcasts to get music at all or musical information?
Not so much. I haven't found any that regularly talk about new
Hmm.
music, you know, and that I think that's one of the reasons why I like doing this show because we
Hmm.
try to bring up new stuff and have conversations around new stuff that either we've been exposed to or seek out information for those who can provide
Right.
exposure to new stuff. But um, I listen. There's a few though that I watch. I can think of one in particular, a guy by the name of Nate Smith, who's a drummer.
Uh-huh.
He's actually he's a R&B drummer, hip hop drummer, jazz drummer
Hmm.
primarily, but he has a podcast where he talks to some of the guys he played with on a regular basis,
Hmm.
and it's really a talk between two musicians. But every now and then they'll play
Hmm.
live some of the stuff that they've worked on together. So now I
Yeah.
get exposure to something that's new, something that's different. But
Yeah.
it's always cool to just see, two artists
Yeah.
interact and engage and to talk about their craft.
Yeah. We talked about the nostalgia of the the vinyl records and what have you. I don't know if I can go back as much as I like it because it's of what I would have to have and store. And I don't want to say I've gotten lazy. I'm not a lazy person, but I've gotten lazy to want to get a record and do this and do all that when it's on my phone and I have all the access to it with a nice speaker and
Yeah.
bass or what have you, and get the same thing or more quicker. And so I may get one just to kind of have and hey, if I'm in a certain setting, put a nice record on and hear that little scratch thing going on. But I don't know if I'm going to go back to that for my
The
sole
difference is this for me.
music playing at home.
When I put an album on, I'm about to sit and I'm about to really dig in deep to the
To
recording,
the whole album,
to the whole thing.
like
When
we
I put
used
it
to.
on, yeah, exactly, I put it on.
Hmm.
I take the record itself, and
Right.
I'm looking at the line of notes, and I'm reading and I'm listening, and
Mm.
it's that's what I'm doing. I'm not multitasking. I'm not
Right.
watching TV. I'm not
Right.
doing anything else. I'm actually just sitting there, and I'm with the music at that point in time.
Mm.
And that's why I say I don't get a physical copy on vinyl unless I know it's something that I really, really,
Mm.
really want to get into deeply and something that I know I'm going to like. It's basically got to be a classic for me to do that.
So you just said something that I really wasn't thinking. It was a good point, is that when you put that album on there, you're not just listening to one song.
Mm-mm.
You listen to
I'm
the
listening to the
whole
whole
thing
thing.
like we do. So when I'm listening to music today, even the old stuff, I'm really listening to the entire album of a certain artist.
Right.
And I tell you, even sometimes if I have a shuffle going on, they play one artist back to back, I'm not really feeling that in my head because I want it to be so different, you
Now,
know?
with that in mind, though,
Yeah,
if I got music on to, let's say, clean the house to,
yeah,
I want to shuffle. I
yeah,
want something that's going to change up every now and then and give me
yeah,
something different. But
yeah,
I'm not actively listening to that. I'm actually, it's in the background and I'm doing whatever else.
yeah,
But when I want to dig deep into an artist,
yeah.
last album that I bought was one of the newer ones by Roy Hargrove.
Hmm.
Um, I wanted to listen to that.
Hmm.
I want to sit down and I want to engage in this conversation that he's having through
With
his
his horn.
instrument.
Yeah,
Exactly. So
yeah,
it's just me, him, and the band at
yeah.
that point in
You
time.
got time to do that, man?
I make time to do it. I make time
I'm
to do
kidding.
it. But that's a good point.
Right.
I I often sit and I set time aside just that's my
That's
woosah
your
time.
time.
That's my,
Yeah.
my time to decompress.
Yeah.
If it's an hour or two out of the month,
Yeah.
I take that time.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think we all should do that and make time for ourselves to decompress and regroup and refresh, right?
Hmm.
And I think music is a beautiful way to do that, to clear your mind, get
Absolutely.
you thinking and just get you right. To me, it does, for sure.
It for me as well. And
Yeah.
I've been doing it for a number of years and probably will do it for a lot more, God willing.
Yeah. Yeah. All right, man.
So,
Yeah.
where y'all get y'all music from?
Where we get it from?
When are you listening, and what
Yeah.
are you listening to?
Yeah.
We talked a little bit about streaming services. We
Yeah.
talked a little bit about, physical versus, but
Right.
in physical vinyl CDs versus, digital copies. Be curious to see what others' experiences are and how you consume your music. So let us know in the comments and chime in, and look forward to engage you in this conversation.
That's right.
So until the next episode, Connoisseurs and Conversations.